Hello everyone, so today I'm reviewing the Japanese course of Mango Languages. So I've been using Mango Languages for about 3 years, so it was even before I started my channel, and it wasn't anything regular, so there were times when I would do it regularly and other times when I wouldn't really do it. Hashtag guilty language learner. Anyway, so over these 3 and something years, I've spent a total of 45 hours on the Japanese course. So obviously this review will be about Japanese, but I'm sure most of what I will be saying will be applicable to all the languages that Mango Languages offer. And they offer about 70 languages, so that's a lot. And I think that's amazing that they include so many languages in their program. I'm all for linguistic diversity. So I think the best thing to do now is to show you what it looks like. So when you open your app, what happens is that you have the menu with all the units, and you can see that there's, for Japanese anyway, and for many courses, especially the most popular languages like French, you have 4 units. So that's a lot of content. Bear in mind, it took me 45 hours to complete the first 2 units. So there's about 100 hours of content, I would say, maybe more. So the way it works is that you have units which are divided by chapters, and in each unit there's, I think, 10 chapters. So yeah, they all have 10 chapters. And in each chapter you have lessons, and the number of lessons in each chapter kind of depends. It can go from 5 to 13, I think. So let's have a look at the first lesson. So what happens at the beginning is that you get a summary of what you will cover in each chapter and lesson. And then the first thing you see normally is a dialogue. So I've cut the sound because otherwise it's kind of hard to talk over it. But essentially you would have the dialogue read to you by native speakers, and the sound quality is actually very good, which is something I enjoy. And Mango Languages confirmed to me that there were, the voices were recorded in a professional studio, which I think is great because often with apps you get like some kind of crappy robot sounding voice, and it's sometimes not very precise, in the pronunciation. So it's a good one. And you regularly have grammar notes or cultural notes, which are, as they're called, notes that explain a bit about the grammar and the language. And sometimes you also have cultural notes, which I hope we will see at some point. And then you have the sentences or the vocab that you learn in the lesson. So let's hear it.
Konnichiwa.
And then the point is for you to repeat what you see on your screen in order to practice the pronunciation and, just kind of try to retain the vocabulary. I also forgot to specify this, but if you cannot read the hiragana yet, you can also click on the words like this, and then you will see the romaji or the English letters. And this feature is always available throughout the app. And you can also record your voice. I can't actually use the feature right now because I'm recording the screen, so it doesn't work, but you can record yourself and compare it to a native speaker voice, which, it's kind of nice if you want to, kind of be aware of how you pronounce things. And then with the green arrow, you can just kind of replay the phrase. And then you kind of just work your way through it. You have all new phrases, show, answer, and then you kind of test yourself. Then eventually you've got new phrases, good morning. You have a cultural note, so it tells you about a single generic greeting. Yeah, it tells you about our greeting in Japanese, and lots of information like that. And yeah, you just kind of do your thing, practice, and then the vocab gets a bit more, not advanced, but you learn more words, and then you start building your sentences from the first lesson, which I think is good. And then yeah, you learn various things. And obviously you've got different sort of topics. So one is about saying what language you speak, if you understand it or not. Then you have getting around, paying, ordering drinks and counting and all that stuff. Oh, one thing I didn't specify though is that there is actually a hands-free sort of way of using it, if I can say, is if you press that button, then it plays like a sort of podcast, I guess, so we'll just play the sentences automatically, and if you're just walking in the street, you can just kind of repeat things to yourself or out loud if you're brave. But essentially it's a nice way to practice while driving or when you don't actually want to be on your phone doing it. So I think it's a great feature, so it's kind of versatile in that way. And yeah, I think I've explained everything really. So now let's talk about my opinion on Mango languages. I will start with the positive. One of the positives for me was the sound quality, because I've used lots of different apps to practice Japanese and just generally learn it. And the sound quality was often not really good. I mean, for example, Duolingo wasn't really good because they use a kind of text-to-speech sort of robot software. And I think it's not very good because I think it's nice to be able to listen to a human voice, you know. And another thing that I haven't shown actually is that if you press the words on the screen one by one, you can actually hear the words pronounced slower than the full sentence. So it's actually something else that can be good for you to practice individual words. I definitely wanted to do that a lot because it's nice to be able to kind of hear the intricacies of the pronunciation, which is not always possible with other apps. Another positive is that they include grammar and culture in the courses, and it's actually something I've sort of fallen in love with when using Mango languages, is the fact that you don't just learn phrases off by heart, you also learn to make your sentences independently because you understand how the sentences are built. And I think it's very important if you want to move away from touristy language, which would be only learning phrases, to move on to actually something where you are independent and can actually produce your own sentences. My third point is probably that the content is huge. I mean, 2 units is 45 hours, and I'm guessing that 4 units would be about 100 or more hours of study, and I don't think any other programs offers that much content. Fourth positive is the fact that it's free if your library offers it. I will give you more details in the description if you're interested, but it's actually free if your library has a subscription to Mango languages and if you have an account in your library. And my last positive for me, which is actually quite important, is the fact that it's a very good companion if you're using other resources. Maybe you're doing Japanese classes, maybe you're using a self-learning book. Well, Mango languages can be very helpful because it means that you get extra practice if you use the two, and it's just a way to keep on practicing and giving you more speaking practice as well. Because if you're in a classroom or learning on your own, you often don't get a lot of speaking practice, and speaking is actually the hardest skill to develop, in my opinion. So Mango languages can be very helpful for that. Now for the negatives, there's actually not much that I have to say. The only thing I would say though is that there is so much content that over time you tend to forget the vocab you've learned before. And even though when you go through the lessons, there is sometimes a reminder or like a kind of review of previous things learned. Sometimes I feel like it's not enough, and I wouldn't always be able to remember like all the phrases from the first unit if I'm doing unit 2, for example. And it was actually part of my feedback when I got in touch with them, that the review system could be a little bit better. But you know, the fact that you can review lessons whenever you want means that if you need to refresh your memory a bit, you can just go back. So it's not like a big issue in the app, but I still think it's something that could be improved. So to sort of conclude this review, which I hope wasn't too long, I would say that Mango languages is something I would recommend to anyone that wants to learn a language, because you can use it as a sort of companion or sort of extra activity or extra practice alongside, you know, a language course or a textbook, like I said earlier. Personally, I think Mango languages has helped me a lot to improve my grammar and my vocab, because I was taking language classes and it was a nice way to reinforce and improve my vocab on top of what I was already doing in a classroom. So that's essentially it for this review. I hope you liked it. I will put probably a couple of links in the description below, so do feel free to check it out. If you do decide to try Mango languages, or maybe you have tried it before, do feel free to let me know what you think or thought about it, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!